Jake had always been fascinated by space. The stars, the planets, and the endless unknown called to him like a siren's song. As a pilot for Earth's deep space exploration program, he had seen many things, most of them far from what people back home could imagine. But nothing in his years of service had prepared him for the day he would find himself in the middle of a strange, uncharted sector of space. It started like any other mission. Jake and his crew were on a routine patrol. They were supposed to chart a new star system near the edge of human-controlled space. However, a sudden glitch in the navigation system sent their ship Endurance spiraling off course. The ship's systems were designed to handle small hiccups, but this was more than that. Something was wrong. The ship's AI, Tess, was glitching, showing strange signals on the screens. "We're way off course, Jake," Tess reported in her calm, robotic voice. "Something's not right." Jake gripped the controls, trying to steady the ship, but the AI's voice was clear. They were far from any known star systems. The AI's help, he decided to take the ship to the nearest planet for repairs. But this decision would lead him to an unexpected discovery. The planet was nothing like Earth. It was desolate and barren, with jagged mountains and dark skies. Still, it was the only option. Jake prepared to land in a rocky canyon, his mind racing with thoughts of how to fix the ship and get back on track. As the ship touched down, Jake suited up and stepped out into the cold, strange world. The air was thin, and the sky had an eerie glow. He adjusted his helmet and looked around, scanning for any signs of life. The planet seemed quiet, too quiet. Suddenly, a small, high-pitched sound pierced the silence. Jake froze, his heart skipping. A beat, it was coming from a nearby cave. His curiosity kicked in, and he approached cautiously, his pulse quickening with each step. When he entered the cave, the source of the noise became clear. It was a pata, small futuristic craft buried under a pile of rubble. And inside it was something he never could have imagined, an alien baby. The tiny creature was barely conscious, its skin a soft shade of green, with large, innocent eyes. It was struggling to breathe, its small chest rising and falling in rapid gasps. Jake's first instinct was to walk away. This wasn't his problem, and it was dangerous. God. But as he looked at the baby's fragile form, something inside him shifted. He couldn't leave it behind. Without a second thought, he quickly got to work, using his training to stabilize the baby's condition. "Hang on, little one," Jake whispered to himself as he used the ship's medical kit to perform basic first aid. He knew he was far from being a doctor, but he had learned enough over the years to help in a crisis. Slowly, he managed to stabilize the baby's breathing, though it was clear that this was only a temporary solution. Jake carried the alien baby back to the Endurance, his heart pounding. He couldn't just leave it there. No matter how dangerous or unknown the situation might be, he wasn't about to let this innocent life slip away. The creature's big eyes looked up at him as he carefully placed it in a secure compartment aboard the ship. He had to get it back to Earth. Maybe they could figure out what to do with it there, after several tense hours of flight. Jake finally set a course back to Earth. His mind raced with questions. Who was this child? Where did it come from? And why had it been left alone on a desolate planet? He didn't have answers, but for now, all he could do was protect it. As the ship traveled through space, Jake kept a close watch over the baby. It was still weak, but its condition seemed to improve. The baby even managed a small, weak smile as it grasped his finger. That moment, simple as it was, hit Jake harder than he expected. He had done something good. Maybe that was enough. They finally arrived back at Earth. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was at play. As the Endurance touched down on the landing pad, a small team of scientists and medical personnel rushed to meet him. They quickly took the baby and began their assessments. Jake was left standing there, feeling a strange sense of emptiness. What now? The alien child was out of his hands, but he couldn't help but wonder if he'd ever see it again. That's when the unthinkable happened. Hours later, a loud, booming voice echoed through the facility. "Where's my child?" the voice demanded. Jake's heart skipped a beat. He recognized the voice. It wasn't human. He turned to see a massive figure stepping into the room. The figure was tall, regal, and undeniably alien. She had flowing silver hair, shimmering blue skin, and an air of authority that immediately commanded respect. Her eyes locked onto Jake's, and a sudden chill ran down his spine. "You saved my daughter," she said, her tone steady, but filled with something he couldn't quite place. "And for that, you have my gratitude." Jake stood frozen. The alien woman was beautiful, her presence overwhelming, but there was something else in her gaze, something that made Jake feel both honored and incredibly out of his depth. And then, to his shock, she said the last words he ever expected to hear. "You have saved my child." Jake stood still, unable to take his eyes off the alien woman. She was tall, almost twice his height, with shimmering blue skin and silver hair that seemed to flow like liquid light. Her eyes were an intense shade of violet, and they glowed with a powerful, almost regal energy. She was beautiful, but there was something more than beauty. It was strength raw, commanding, and undeniable. "You saved my daughter," she said, her voice deep and steady, echoing in the sterile, cold room. "And for that, you have my gratitude." Jake opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. He had no idea how to respond. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. The alien woman had referred to him as mate. The word still hung in the air like an unspoken challenge. "Where is she?" the woman asked, stepping forward. Her gaze softened just a little when she saw the baby being attended to by medical staff in the corner. The infant, the alien baby he had found, was now lying in a protective bubble, surrounded by equipment that Jake didn't understand. The medical team was working quickly, monitoring the baby's vitals. They had reassured Jake that the baby was stable for now, but he still couldn't shake the feeling of unease. His role in saving her had been accidental, a series of quick decisions based on his instincts. He wasn't a hero. He was just a guy who had done what he thought was right. But for this alien woman to call him mate, it was like a whole new world was opening up before him. "Your daughter is fine," Jake finally managed to say. "She's being taken care of. She's going to be okay." The alien woman nodded, her expression softening. She stepped closer to the baby's bedside, her eyes never leaving the tiny alien. There was an undeniable tenderness in her gaze. Jake couldn't help but notice how protective she seemed, even though they had just met. It was a strange and intense connection. How could this be happening? "I am Queen Alara of the Zanara people," she said, her voice commanding yet calm. "And you, human, are the one who saved my child's life. In my culture, when someone saves a royal's life, the bond created is sacred. You are now bound to my family." Jake blinked. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," she said with a small smile, but there was an edge to her voice. "It is not something one would expect. But the bond is real, and it cannot be undone." He was still processing the weight of her words. This wasn't just some casual thank you. This was something much deeper, something that had the power to change his entire life. Before he could speak again, Ilara turned and looked at him directly. Her eyes locked onto his, and Jake felt a strange pull. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something more in her presence that left him breathless. "You are now my mate," she said again, her voice firm but gentle. "And as is the custom, we must spend time together so that our bond can grow. I will not force you, human. But I will not let you walk away from this either." Jake didn't know what to say. He had never been in a situation like this before. A royal alien queen was standing in front of him, declaring that he was her mate. It felt like a dream, but it was so real, so strange, so overwhelming. "I don't understand," he said, his voice shaking just slightly. "I didn't save her for any reason other than because she needed help. I didn't expect this." Ilara studied him closely. "I know. It is the beauty of it. You acted out of compassion. And in my culture, that is the highest form of honor. We do not take such things lightly." "My people believe that the bond between a savior and a royal is sacred, and I am bound to you as much as you are to me." Jake shook his head, trying to make sense of everything. I'm not. I don't belong in this world. I'm just a pilot. I'm not ... royalty. I don't even know what to do. You will learn, she said softly, her hand reaching out and touching his arm lightly. I will teach you. You will find that this bond is not something to fear, but something that can change everything. Together, we will bring peace between our people. The words hit Jake like a wave. Peace between their people. Was that really what was at stake here? If this wasn't just about him and an alien queen, this was about something far bigger. Before he could ask more questions, another voice broke into the conversation. Your Majesty. We've completed the assessment, one of the medical staff said, stepping forward. The child is stable, and we can move her to a secure room now. She'll need rest. But it looks like she'll make a full recovery. Ilara nodded, and for the first time since entering the room, a sense of relief crossed her face. Thank you, she said simply. She turned back to Jake. You saved her. My people will forever be in your debt. Jake wasn't sure how to respond to that. He had never been anyone's hero, let alone a galactic hero, as Ilara moved toward. The medical team Jake was left standing there, his mind racing. This was happening. The alien baby, the queen, the bond. It was all real. Whether he liked it or not, his life was never going to be the same. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that his life was spiraling out of control. Just a few days ago, he had been an ordinary pilot, flying through space, doing his job. Now, he was standing face to face with an alien queen who had declared him her mate. The very thought made his head spin. Queen Ilara was no ordinary woman. She was strong, regal, and powerful. And despite her otherworldly beauty, there was an intensity to her presence that unsettled Jake. It was as if she carried the weight of an entire galaxy on her shoulders. He didn't know what to make of it. How could he, a regular human, have such an impact on someone like her? The days that followed were a blur. Ilara insisted on staying close to Jake. She visited him daily, much to his growing discomfort. She always had a reason to be near him often, discussing her people, her customs, or the mission to bring peace between their two worlds. But it was clear that she wasn't just talking about peace anymore. She was also talking about him. No, this is a lot for you to understand, she said one evening, as they walked through the gardens near the facility, where the baby was being cared for. But our bond is more than just a formality. It's deep, Jake. It connects us in ways you don't yet see. Jake stopped and looked at her. I never asked for this, he said, frustration creeping into his voice. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. This is all too much. Ilara's eyes softened, and for the first time, Jake saw a vulnerability in her that he hadn't noticed before. She stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. You don't have to understand it all right now, but I need you to trust me. People, my kingdom, they believe that this union will bring about peace. You are important, Jake, not just to me, but to the galaxy. Jake swallowed hard. His chest tightened and he took a step back, trying to make sense of the situation. I'm just a guy. I'm not some ... prince or hero. I just did what anyone would have done. Ilara smiled gently, but her smile was tinged with sadness. You underestimate yourself, human. Compassion, your ability to act when it matters, it's what makes you the right person for this. You've saved my daughter, and that makes you family in my eyes. We didn't know what to say to that. The weight of her words pressed down on him. Was he really that important? Could something as simple as saving a life change everything? He didn't know. But it felt as though his world was being reshaped in ways he couldn't control. Over the next few days, Ilara continued to seek him out. She invited him to meals, to private meetings, and even to the training sessions where she taught him about her people's ways. It wasn't just about duty anymore. It was about building something. A bond. A future. I've been married before, Ilara told him one evening, her voice quiet as they sat together in a large, ornate hall. But that union was for power, for the kingdom. It didn't have the love, the connection, that this one will. I know it's different for you, but I believe it can work. You and I, Jake, we're meant to be. Jake couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion at her words. Her conviction was powerful. She truly believed in this bond, in them. Part of him wanted to believe it too. But another part of him, his human side, was terrified. How could this work? He didn't even know her culture. He didn't understand the complexities of her world, her people, and their expectations. "I don't know if I can be what you want me to be," he said softly. "I'm just a pilot. I don't know anything about ruling a kingdom or ... Paused, unsure of how to finish his thought, or being a mate. Ilara placed her hand gently on his. Her touch was warm, comforting. "You don't need to know everything, Jake. You just need to be willing. Willing to learn, to grow with me." The words settled in his mind. He was willing, but the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There were too many unknowns, too many risks. But he couldn't ignore the way he felt when he was with Herthapul. He couldn't explain. As the days passed, Jake found himself becoming more and more involved in Ilara's world. They spent more time together talking, learning from one another. She taught him about the Zanara people's culture, their rituals, and the importance of their royal bloodline. And in turn, he shared what he knew about Earth, about the simple life he had led before all of this. One evening, Ilara invited him to a grand celebration held in honor of their newfound alliance. The event was lavish, with alien music and dancers, bright lights, and towering sculptures. Jake felt out of place in the opulence, but Ilara seemed at home, glowing with the confidence of a queen. She led him to the center of the hall where the crowd parted to make way for them. Jake's heart raced as all eyes turned to them. He could feel the weight of their gaze, but when he looked at Ilara, he saw nothing but reassurance in her eyes. "Tonight," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper in his ear, "marks the beginning of our future together, the future of our people." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Jake wasn't sure what the future held, but in that moment, standing beside her, he felt something shift. He wasn't alone in this. He wasn't just a human in a foreign world. He was part of something bigger, something that could change everything. "With you," he said, his voice steady. "Let's see where this goes." Lara smiled, and for the first time, Jake truly believed that this was only the... Jake's life had never been this complicated. He'd always been just a pilot, flying across the stars, seeing distant worlds. But nothing had prepared him for the mess he was in now. A human pilot who had accidentally saved an alien baby and was now bound by an ancient bond to her mother, the queen of the Zanara people. He never imagined he would be in the middle of an intergalactic affair with Earth's safety hanging in. The balance? It had only been a few weeks since he first met Queen Ilara, and in that time, things had escalated quickly. It wasn't just about them anymore. Their union, their bond, had become a symbol for the entire galaxy. The peace they were supposed to bring was in serious jeopardy. The peaceful days of quiet. Meetings and bonding were shattered when an alien fleet arrived on the edge of Earth's space. These weren't allies, nor were they neutral. They were enemies, rival factions that had heard rumors of the Queen's bond to a human. The word was spreading, and the Zinara were now seen as weak by other factions. They were angry. It started with a message. A chilling communication from an alien general of the Torner Dominion. A ruthless and powerful race. The Zanara Queen has fallen to human influence. The general's voice echoed over the comm. "We demand she return to her rightful place, or Earth will feel the consequences." Jake's heart sank as he heard the words. The message was clear. Earth was now a target. If Ilara didn't return to her people, Earth would be at war with the Dominion. He stood in the command center with Ilara, who looked calm, but Jake could see the tension in her eyes. Her people had already suffered in the past, and she didn't want to lead them back into war. But now, the Zanara people's future and Earth's was at risk. "I won't return to my people until the peace between our worlds is secure," Ilara said with determination. "This bond between us is sacred. I will not let my people destroy everything I've worked for." Jake couldn't help but admire her strength, but deep down he feared the consequences. If the Dominion attacked, would Earth be able to defend itself? He wasn't a soldier, and he didn't know what kind of weapons the alien races had. But he did know one thing. He couldn't let Ilara face this alone. "We need to show them we're not afraid," Jake said. "Earth isn't some helpless planet. We can fight too." Ilara turned to him, her eyes searching his face. never asked him to be a soldier, but in this moment, Jake felt a sense of duty stronger than anything he had ever felt before. The Zanara fleet was small. It would take time for Earth's military to prepare for a battle. But Jake knew that even if they were outmatched, they had to stand their ground. The message Alara had sent to the Dominion was clear. Earth wasn't going to back down. They weren't going to be bullied into submission. The hours following the message were tense. Earth's leaders gathered in secret meetings to discuss what to do. They weren't prepared for an alien war, and the idea of defending their home against a much larger fleet seemed impossible. Yet there was one thing Jake knew better than anyone else. Humans were fighters. They had survived wars, disasters, and countless challenges. Ilara stood beside him during these tense moments, her presence steady and reassuring. She wasn't just a queen, she was a warrior too. She wasn't going to let her people be pushed around. "We need to get ready," she said one evening as they reviewed military strategies. "Can't rely on Earth's forces alone. I'll call for reinforcements from the Zanara fleet. We will fight alongside you." Jake had never seen her so determined. She had a plan, and she was willing to risk everything for it. It was clear she saw Earth not just as an ally, but as a part of her future. In the days that followed, Earth's defenses were bolstered. Fighter ships were mobilized, and human soldiers prepared for the worst. But there was still something Jake couldn't shake, the fear that they might not be enough. How could they possibly stand against a fleet as powerful as the Dominions? Evening, as the two of them stood on the observation deck, watching the stars twinkle in the distance, Jake spoke what had been on his mind. "Are we really ready for this?" he asked quietly, his voice uncertain. Ilara turned to him, her eyes softening. "We are not alone, Jake. I've seen what humans are capable of. Your resilience is unmatched, and your determination is something no alien force can break. Together, we can face anything." Jake believed her. Deep down, he did. But it wasn't enough to just believe. They had to act. They had to defend their home, not just for themselves, but for their people, their families, and for the galaxy's future. The Dominion had made it clear that they wouldn't stop until Alara was returned to her rightful place. But Jake wasn't going to let that happen. Not while he was alive. And not while Earth had a fighting chance. In the following days, Jake worked alongside Earth's military forces, preparing them for the fight ahead. He learned more about tactics and strategy than he ever thought he would. The warships were being outfitted with powerful new weapons, and Earth's scientists were working overtime to develop countermeasures to the Dominion's advanced technology. The battle was coming, and Jake knew they couldn't back down. "We're all in this together now." Whether it was a human pilot or an alien queen, they were fighting for the same thing: survival. Ilara stood beside him in the command center, ready to fight for what she believed in. And Jake? He was right there with her, ready to fight for Earth. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Jake couldn't help but think of what was at stake. Their bond, the peace between Earth and the Zanara, it all depended on this moment. And he would do whatever it took to protect. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that things were moving too fast. One moment, he had been just another human, living an ordinary life. The next, he was standing at the center of a galactic conflict. His bond with an alien queen pulling him into a war he never asked for. It wasn't just the battle with the Dominion that had him on edge. It was the pressure. The weight of the choices that had to be made. The lives that depended on the decisions made in these next few hours. In the command center, Alara stood next. To Jake, her regal presence somehow more comforting than overwhelming. Her violet eyes were filled with a mix of determination and sadness. She had made a promise to her people that she would return to her homeworld if peace could be secured. But now, the very idea of leaving Earth and Jake felt like it would tear her apart. "We can't run away," Jake Ilara said softly as they watched the fleet move into position. "The Dominion will never stop coming after me, and the peace between our worlds can't happen if I return to my kingdom in shame. If I do that, everything we fought for will be lost." Jake looked at her, his mind racing. He had known from the beginning that he wasn't prepared for any of this, but now it felt more real than ever. His life wasn't just about him anymore. It was tied to Alara, to her people, and to the peace they had hoped to create. I understand, he said, his voice steady. But what if it's not enough? What if the Dominion has more power than we thought? Alara turned to face him, her hand gently resting on his arm. It's not about power, Jake. It's about heart. We have something they don't, unity, and we have you. You've given me something I never thought I would find. Trust. Together, we've built something real. The words hit Jake harder than he expected. He had always been the kind of person who kept to himself, never expecting to be the one who made a difference. But now, Alara was depending on him, and the stakes had never been higher. His chest tightened at the thought. If they failed, it wouldn't just be his loss. It would be the loss of everyone who believed in the idea of a peaceful future between Earth and the Zanara. The time for decisions had come. A fleet of Dominion warships was just hours away, and Jake knew that Earth's military would be ready, but the odds were still against them. His mind kept returning to one question. Would the Zanara fleet arrive in time? Would Earth survive? Suddenly Alara's voice broke through his thoughts. Jake, I have to make a choice, a hard choice. My people expect me to return to my throne. If I stay here, I risk everything. My people, my legacy, and this future we're building. But I can't leave. Not now. Not after everything we've shared. Jake looked into her eyes, and for a moment, everything else faded away. He had been trying so hard to understand her world, to find his place in it. But now, with her words hanging in the air, he realized something. It wasn't about power or politics or the warships. It was about love. A bond that could not be broken, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. You don't have to decide alone, Jake said, his voice calm but full of conviction. Whatever happens, I'm with you. We'll face this together. Lara's gaze softened, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. You're right, I can't do this alone. Neither of us can. The decision wasn't easy, but it was clear. Alara turned to her communications officer and gave the order to send a message to her people. It was a risk there was no guarantee. They would agree to her terms. But it was the only way forward. I will remain here with you, she said. I will fight alongside Earth. The Zanara will either stand with us, or they will be left behind. This is my choice, and I will not let fear rule my heart. As the hours passed, Earth's forces continued to prepare for battle. The fleet was in position, ready to engage the Dominion's warships, but there was still a sense of uncertainty in the air. Could Earth and the Zanara make it through this? Could they survive the overwhelming power of the Dominion? Alara and Jake spent their final hours together, talking and preparing, making sure they were both ready for whatever was to come. They had come a long way from the day they met, when everything was unknown and dangerous. They were united in a way that neither of them had ever expected. Their bond wasn't just a promise, it was a lifeline. As night fell, the silence in the command center was broken by the arrival of a message from the Zanara fleet. Alara read the message carefully, her expression unreadable as she finished. They've agreed, she said, her voice almost a whisper. The Zanara fleet will stand with us. They will fight for Earth, for peace. Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him, but it wasn't over yet. The Dominion would not go down without a fight. They had made their move, but Earth's fate was still uncertain. Alara turned to Jake, her eyes full of gratitude. This is it, Jake. Our moment. The galaxy is watching. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. There was no turning back now. But whatever happened, he knew he had done the right thing. They had stood together. And together, they would face whatever came. The battle was upon them. Jake stood alongside Queen Alara in the command center, his heart pounding in his chest as Earth's forces prepared for war. The Dominion fleet was enormous, a deadly force that had come to destroy everything Jake and Alara had worked for. The fate of Earth, the Zanara people, alliance, rested on their shoulders. Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. They were about to face the largest battle in human history, and he, just a pilot, was somehow at the center of it. He had never imagined his life would take him to such places, But here he was, standing beside Alara, ready to fight for a future he never expected to be a part of. "Everything is ready," Alara said, her voice steady as she gave the final commands. Her presence was powerful, and her calm demeanor reassured Jake, even as the tension in the air was nearly unbearable. "We stand united, Jake. Together, we will fight for peace. We will fight for each other." Jake nodded, his determination solidifying. He had never believed in fate. But as he looked at Elarat, the woman who had brought him into a world of wonder, danger, and hope, he couldn't deny it. This wasn't just about saving Earth or the Zinara people. This was about love, trust, and standing up for what they believed in. The first wave of Dominion ships appeared on the horizon, their dark, menacing silhouettes cutting through the stars. Jake's heart skipped a beat as the sheer scale of the enemy fleet became clear. There were thousands of warships, each armed with enough firepower to destroy entire planets. And yet, Earth had something they didn't. Unity had the Zinara. Fleet on their side, and more importantly, they had each other. "Jake," Elara said softly, her voice carrying across the command center, "no matter what happens, I want you to know that this bond we share is eternal. You and I, we will always be together." Jake turned to face her, his emotions rising. He had never thought he would find someone like Elarus, someone who had shown him what it meant to fight for something greater than himself. He had always been a solitary person, content with his quiet life, but now, standing by her side, he understood what it meant to be part of something bigger. "I know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let anything happen to you, Alara. We're in this together. We'll get through this, no matter what it takes." Alara gave him a soft smile, the kind that made Jake's heart swell with pride. She reached out and took his hand. In hers, "I believe in you, Jake. Together, we are unstoppable." The enemy fleet grew closer, and the time to act was now. Earth's defenses powered up, and the Zinara ships stood ready. Jake and Alara's forces were prepared to face the Dominion head-on. It was a fight for survival, but it was also a fight for the future. A future where humans and aliens could coexist in peace. The battle began in a flash of light. The Dominion ships fired first, their energy blasts tearing through the darkness of space. Earth's fleet responded with equal force, their advanced weapons clashing against the enemy's shields in a brilliant display of power. Jake's heart raced as he manned the controls of one of Earth's most powerful warships. The Endurance, now outfitted with state-of-the-art technology provided by the Zinara. "All ships, engage." Jake's voice rang out over the comms. "We're not backing down. It's fight for Earth, fight for peace." The battle raged on, the sound of explosions and energy blasts filling the air. Ships twisted and turned, dodging incoming fire and launching counterattacks. Jake fought alongside Alara's forces, his focus unwavering. He could hear the Zinara commanders coordinating their attacks, their voices calm and precise as they outmaneuvered the Dominion fleet. But even as the fight intensified, Jake felt a sense of unity he had never experienced before. The Zinara were fierce warriors, and Earth's forces fought with a courage that was unmatched. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with. Hours passed in a blur of chaos and destruction. The battle seemed endless, but Jake and Alara never lost sight of what they were fighting for. The Dominion was relentless, but Earth's resolve was stronger. They would not give up. They could not give up. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the tide began to turn. The Dominion fleet, though powerful, began to retreat, their ships damaged and their forces depleted. The Zinara fleet and Earth's military had won. They had held their ground. Earth was safe. Jake sat back in his seat, breathing heavily as the adrenaline began to wear off. He looked over at Alara, who was standing beside him, her expression calm but filled with relief. The battle was over, but the journey they had started was just beginning. "We did it," Jake said, grin spreading across his face. Alara's eyes softened as she looked at him, her smile matching his. "Yes, we did," she replied, as the remaining Dominion ships retreated into the distance. The victorious fleet turned toward Earth. The war was over. The peace they had fought for was now a reality. Later, as the stars twinkled brightly outside the window, Jake and Alara stood together, watching the galaxy stretch out before them. The world they had fought for was finally at peace. "I think it's time we take a break," Jake said, his voice full of hope. "How about a honeymoon?" Alara laughed softly, her eyes sparkling. "I think that sounds like the perfect idea, Jake. But where shall we go?" Jake grinned. "I was thinking maybe somewhere beyond the stars, somewhere quiet, just the two of us, to celebrate everything we've accomplished." Alara leaned in, her lips brushing against his. "Wherever we go, as long as we're together, that's all that matters." And as they stood there, side by side, looking out into the infinite expanse of space, Jake realized that no matter where their journey took them, they had already found what they were looking for: love, peace, and